The land of legends. Esteban looked at the flickering flame of the burning candle, then at the faces of those seated around him, and whispered, "My friends, the one who is possessed is one of the people sitting at this very table." But before we reach that part, let's go back a few days, to my very first visit to Romania. I was 34 years old, and 2 years had passed since my terrifying adventure with Count Dracula. Naively, I thought that my troubles were finally over, and that the time had come to get married, start a small family, and open a clean little clinic as soon as I returned from this scientific mission. At one of the universities in Cluj, I met the Romanian journalist Gustav Vicolscu, a remarkably intelligent young man with a sharp sense of humour. He spoke English like a native, was well read in literature and the humanities, and took it upon himself to guide me through every step of my journey. He taught me a great deal about Romania, a country I knew very little about, or, to be honest, absolutely nothing. What's the dominant religion here? The majority of the population are Romanian Orthodox. And communism. He smiled discreetly, then leaned closer and whispered meaningfully, "Comrade, communism will never change Romania. Romania is unique in Europe. It will never truly change." Romania, as he told me, means land of Rome. The name comes from the great Roman leader Trajan, who conquered the region and expelled the barbarians in the Battle of Dacia in 106 AD. Since then, it became a Roman province. Later, the Goths invaded it, followed by the Slavs in the 6th century AD. I suppose the Slavs gave Romania its distinct character? To some extent, but more importantly, they divided it into 2 regions, Transylvania and Wallachia. Transylvania, where the Count's castle is. Dracula? Yes, it's a land steeped in legends. Its most famous tourist attraction is Count Dracula's castle. We must visit it together. It's a place that fires the imagination to the extreme. You fool, what do you know about that castle? About the Count's coffin, his servant, and? In fact, Transylvania is also home to Frankenstein's castle, as described by Madame Mary Shelley. What a magnificent country. Sure. Anyway, I was telling you that the Turks invaded Romania, and a great battle took place between them and Stephen the Great on the plains of Rakova. Then Turkey, the sick man of Europe, ceded parts of the country to Austria in the Treaty of Passarowitz. So when did you become free then? That happened in 1856, when Prince Alexandru Cuza was elected to rule. After World War I, we annexed Bukovina from Russia. Then came World War II, and General Antonescu took power on behalf of the Nazis. As a result, we lost Bukovina again, along with parts of Transylvania, which returned to Hungary. After the war, we became a communist state under the Soviet Union. That conversation took place in 1961, and none of us could have imagined what would happen to Romania or to communism itself 30 years later. I asked him, "Why do you people like communism?" "We don't really. It's not by choice. Moscow doesn't give anyone a chance to choose. Besides, we were desperate for any kind of change after the oppression of the former regime." "Could I use your cigarette to light mine?" I handed him a cigarette, and he exclaimed, "You see, before 1947, this would have been a crime punishable by jail for both of us." "What crime?" "Lighting a cigarette from another cigarette. Monopoly laws back then required citizens to use a matchstick for that purpose, just to boost the matchstick trade." I burst out laughing. I had never imagined such ingenuity in restricting personal freedom. What utter human ignorance. Gustav said, "You'll see many strange things in Romania. For now, you should head back to your hotel and get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow." It was a wonderful 2-week tour. We visited the universities of Cluj, the ancient churches of Bucharest, and the taverns of Mamaia on the Black Sea coast, where tough sailors shared thrilling tales. We also visited the port of Constanța, Romania's most important harbour. But what moved me the most was my visit to Transylvania. Transylvania is a low basin in the western part of the country, bordered by the Transylvanian Alps. To the north, you'll find Romania's steel industry hubs, followed by the region of Crișana. That name sounds familiar to me. The Carpathians are a pastoral region, medium-height mountains covered in grasslands, and to the south flows the Danube River. The Blue Danube. There's no Red Danube, as far as I know. That night we visited the old crumbling castle of Count Dracula. I remembered its details from the photographs I'd seen during my previous visit. I couldn't help but shiver as I imagined Dr. Richard and Vofarsky sneaking into the ruins at night, searching for Dracula's mummy. I recalled the villagers' fear of even passing by it. This place pulses with a certain spirit, something that cannot be described. Gustav said to me, "Romania's folklore is full of horror stories. Mothers here scare their children with tales of vampires, werewolves, and Nosferatu. Why Romania in particular? Either because of the vivid local imagination, or because these creatures really do exist here." The storm. Gustav's car sped down the rugged, branching road as heavy rain poured relentlessly onto the window pane. The warm glass fogged up from our breath, and I kept wiping it down with my handkerchief from time to time. From a distance, through the dense, dark forests, a tongue of lightning would occasionally rip across the sky, bathing everything in a cold, harsh blue light before vanishing again. And seconds later, thunder would roar as if the stars themselves were colliding above us. "It's the Krivat! The Krivat!" It's a fierce winter wind that sweeps through these regions. It devastates the crops, a true curse for the farmers. What a dreadful omen. Don't be gloomy, comrade. You've only seen the smiling face of Romania. It's time you saw her when she bares her fangs. We were crossing the Danube Delta in the south of the country. All the birds had fled before the storm, and only a few wolves remained in the vast forests searching for shelter. The snow began to fall, light and soft, yet powerful. In mere seconds, the forests were blanketed in a beautiful white. I had never seen snow before, and it felt like I was dreaming. Suddenly, the scene transformed into the stage of some fairy tale. Yes, the human imagination must awaken in a place like this. It must. Magnificent! You mean you've never seen snow before today? Yes. Didn't you say you visited England and France several times? I did, but always in clear weather, unfortunately. He burst out laughing, lit a cigarette, and said, "The Danube Delta is full of pelicans, herons, bears, and leopards." Leopards? Of course. You haven't truly seen Romania yet, my friend, and it seems you're going to see much more of it from now on. What do you mean? I mean we won't be able to continue in this weather without chains on the tyres. Gustav began inspecting the road map, then muttered, "The nearest city to us is Terzvarin, but it's quite a distance away. However, there's a small village called Krajovska, just 10 minutes from here. I think it's our only hope. The important thing is to move quickly before that becomes impossible." I agreed with him because the warm blood in my veins from the Nile Valley was beginning to freeze. I was wearing 2 pullovers and a coat, and under my trousers, that thick cotton underwear my late mother had given me when I first went to Alexandria. Yet still I was shivering. My nose had started to run, and I realized I was in bad shape, very bad. Gustav put the map back in the dashboard, then tried to start the engine several times. I held my breath, not wanting to imagine what would happen if the car refused to start, and then finally it did. We drove in silence, surrounded only by snow-covered trees glowing in the car's headlights, and from a distance a wolf or two could be seen running away from the road. Gustav? What about frostbite? And if you don't know, frostbite is a type of gangrene that affects the extremities in extreme cold and can lead to amputation. He replied with something like, "God forbid." I'm not joking, I can't feel my toes. Anyway, it's not that cold, we're not in Siberia, so stop acting like a child. I stayed silent, cursing him in my head, cursing the Danube Delta and this Krivats, or whatever it's called. I started imagining myself returning to Cairo without feet, begging near the Hussein Mosque, or falling prey to the merciless grey wolves of Romania. Would they honour my memory back at the Faculty of Medicine? Maybe name the bathroom after me. The Martyr Rifat Ismail Memorial Restroom. At that time, I didn't know I would live another 30 years, healthy and intact. And today, I remember that in every crisis I faced throughout my life, and there were many, I always believed it would be my last. That's why I never truly enjoyed anything, nor did I learn. When you enter a haunted house at an amusement park or watch a horror movie, you know for certain that, no matter what you see, you'll return home safe afterward. That's why you can fully experience it. But me, I didn't know. The lesson I learned after many long years was to always assume I would make it out of any crisis safely. That way I could maintain a clear mind and keep my thoughts in order. Panic helps no one, and death is a written appointment that no fear or caution will change. If it comes, then let me die like a man, smiling, confident. But I didn't understand that back then. And from afar the village lights appeared. It was 10 o'clock at night. The streets were covered in snow, and darkness was nearly complete, except for the faint glow behind shuttered windows. I shivered at the thought of families huddled around fireplaces, eating hot meals. Now, we had to find an inn. In front of a wooden sign, dimly lit by a lamp, Gustav stepped out of the car. He knocked on the door with a brass knocker hanging beside it and called out something in Romanian. A gruff voice replied from inside. When you hear a language you don't understand, it always feels like the words are rushing between people's lips at a speed impossible to follow. Gustav yelled, and the voice inside yelled back. "What's going on?" The car came to a halt for a moment, and Gustav examined the scattered houses lining both sides of the road. They all looked alike, old wooden homes with small windows, and in front of every door, iron crosses were planted in the ground. He furrowed his brows and said, "This is strange. I hadn't noticed that before." I said, while watching one of the windows where a curtain was swiftly pulled back, as if someone had been watching us and quickly stepped away, "It seems like the villagers are afraid of something." Gustav lit a cigarette, took a long drag, then said, "People in the countryside here believe in all sorts of superstitions. Maybe they're afraid of something we don't know about." I whispered, watching the thick darkness wrapping around the village. "Or maybe they know something we don't."